Hi gang, it's Mike Barnes here again to bring you another solar masterclass. This one's about siting ground mount solar projects. Do a quick screen share here. Got a slide up here that gives the criteria for land. We get a lot of requests from folks asking about, is my land suitable? Well, here's the criteria. You need land that's relatively flat, that is less than 5% slope is ideal. And I'll show that in another video here. Should not contain wetlands. Should have a buffer for view shed, surrounded by trees, etc., to avoid this is not in my backyard issues. It should be accessible by a road. Really important to have this three-phase power out in front of the site, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second on Google Earth. The land should not have any visible rock ledges or outcroppings of large rocks. It should be close to a substation to avoid multiple different equipment that needs to go in for protection schemes, and it should also be leased rather than owned if possible. That is for deal structure, which I'll get into in another video. Let's go for a second to Google Earth here, and I've zoomed in on a project that we constructed. This is in Iowa. Let me zoom out here so you can kind of get the lay of the land. This one's right in the Midwest for Cedar Falls Utilities. And what's unique about this particular visual from Google Earth is that I can actually see the array here, but when I drop the little man from Google out onto the street to look at what this array field looks like from the street level, you can see that the imagery here, as I look across that open field, is the array is not built. And again, the image data here at the bottom, you can see taken from August of 2012. And this array was installed later than that. And so I can exit the street view here, and I want to just show you kind of best practices here when working with Google Earth. From my perspective, you want to keep the north up so that when you're thinking about your land, you can think about this, the sun rising over here in the east, setting in the west, and I can more closely think about, how's my orientation? Are those solar panels going to actually be looking into the sun? And this is almost like me standing above this or drone shot above the array. I want to show you another couple of useful tools here on Google Earth for siting. One is this ruler tool. And if I open that up and I can click on line or path or polygon, I'm going to use the polygon here. I've got it set up for feet and acres, but you can select whether or not you want to look at this in yards or miles or what have you. And there's a number of different reasons you would select some of these. But let's just use the polygon tool here for a second to see, well, how much land did we actually take up on this array? And so I'm just going to get a series of dots going here. And one of the things I've noticed with Google Earth is that you've got to really kind of press and click hard here to get your outline going. And there may be a little bit of latency here, but I'm going to just go around and circle the land here that ended up being used. I'm just going to do a rough and tough so you can get an idea of what this looks like. But notice that when you do this border, you can come up with the perimeter, the amount on the perimeter. Not extremely useful, but what is useful is, well, how much land is needed for this approximate 2 megawatt solar array. And you can see here that the array itself, with a little bit of setback, has actually required almost 8 acres of land. I believe this one, the land ended up being just shy of around 9 acres for installation of solar on almost a 2 megawatt. I think it was 1987 kilowatt array, just working from memory there. So this is a helpful tool to understand, well, how much land do I have? And you can do this on, a fallow piece of ground or a piece of any real area on Google Earth that you want to determine how much solar might be able to go in a location. For example, this is a park. You would probably never site solar here, but if I clear that out, I could just use this tool and do another perimeter. And again, I can create kind of multiple location points here. I can move these location points too to give you a little bit of setback and just figure out, well, how many acres do we have? We have about 1 acre there. And since we know that it takes around 5 acres of land for every megawatt DC of solar, you can do the conversion to figure out how much of this land can be utilized for solar and an approximate size of your solar array. So going back to this image, I want to just show you one other helpful tool here. And this is, again, going back to the ruler. If I select the path tool, and I believe this shows up, this elevation profile is not clicked when you first turn on Google Earth. But if I click on that to show the elevation profile, I can actually start at one location of this array and place a dot and then go to the other location. And what will happen is it'll bring up a little topography here for you. You can see how this works. It starts with an elevation here, in this case, 930 feet above sea level. You can see what that looks like up here. If I kind of zoom in here, let me just get it to the actual size of the screen, and I click in here, it'll actually show you the land topography. And remember, on our siting detail, we don't want slopes that are over about 5%. And you can see here that the average slope on this ground, which is pretty darn flat, is around 1.3%. And so, very good array for siting solar. Now I can also show you, you can do this path any number of ways. I could go from this side of the array to this side of the array to see, well, what does that look like? And you can see how the ground starts off over here. It's higher over here in the east, and then slopes down to the west, and that's okay. Again, just in terms of siting for solar, we want that flat and usable land. And so that's all I have for the group for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to be putting these up for folks to use. And if you've got a piece of land that you think is suitable for solar, why, give me a call. I'll be posting information on our company and how to get a hold of me here. But we'll talk again soon.